It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Dana Carmichael, introducing Catching the Vision.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm really excited to be here today and share with you the revised version of the Catching the Vision video. A lot of people have seen it already, but this version takes the 4 guiding principles and combines them with AIW learning and the reform as it rolls out over time. We think it's important because a lot of people ask us, when do we know we're ready for the next phase? What should we be doing, or who does what? And then, of course, the important questions, why are we doing this and how do we do it? So in the Catching the Vision video from before, we use pictures to really symbolize the different parts of the AIW framework. Triangles will indicate instruction, circles are assessments or tasks, and the blue stars are looking at student work. The 4 guiding principles that we want you to consider are, of course, the power of the collective, the power of being organic, as well as the power of being authentic and the power of risk-taking. Authentic intellectual work stems from the theoretical work of Fred Newman and his colleagues back in the late 80s, and from that time we still are looking at the same framework for authentic intellectual work with 3 consistent components that always thread throughout our reform. To what degree is there construction of knowledge? To what degree is that knowledge based in the discipline? And to what degree is there value beyond school? And for any one of those elements, we can score artifacts within instruction, tasks, or student work. In the beginning, when we start out, we look at what we call the load-bearing studs. What are the professional development requirements? And I like to think of this as a structure. As you start to compromise each one of these, you might end up compromising the reform itself, and we know for sure that when 2 or more are compromised, then the reform pretty much falls in on itself. AIW learning teams need to meet 4 to 6 hours a month. They need to be in teams with 4 to 6 people. The team meetings include scoring and using the AIW framework, and we always bring things that need improvement and use the AIW tools to analyze our pedagogy. Schools that end up being most successful are able to put this in a job-embedded way. And all of these structural components come together and create common language, AIW fluency, trust, a change in student engagement, improved teaching climate, increased test scores, and systemic change within the environment. So what happens when we get started? Well, in the beginning, it's okay to bring any kind of artifact you want, but a lot of people choose to bring assignments, and eventually they'll bring the corresponding piece of student work that goes with it. And some trailblazers will want to go ahead in that first year and bring instruction. These artifacts may or may not be connected, and when schools are first starting out, we actually don't care. But eventually, in order to have a more organic and authentic experience, there are teachers who move towards bundling. Now, bundling is something all teachers do every day. We have assignments and tasks and student work over the same body of content. And within AIW, you might bring an assignment that actually generates some student work that you weren't very happy with. But if, for example, the student work has some elements that, for example, the conceptual understanding of the student work isn't where you want it to be, going and looking at a clip of the instruction might be the best way to actually dial in and analyze what's happening here. So a bundle is simply looking at one body of content through different artifacts in order to analyze our pedagogical practice and change to improve to get better quality student work. Bundling can happen within one part of a day within a unit. For example, what's been circled here would be a clip of a substantive conversation. In this particular picture, you have a whole unit. In the beginning, there's a task, it's construction of knowledge, and that construction of knowledge might be the summative. If we look at the end of the unit, it's very similar in size and scope. But on this particular day, the teacher might be feeling like the quality of the conversation that happened in that substantive conversation was not exactly where he wanted it to be. So the teacher would bring the task and the piece of student work that came with it. And you'll notice in this case the stars and the circles are small within this bundle because they're smaller in scope. The focus seems to be the substantive conversation. You can also bundle within a unit and look at two different time periods as long as the content is the same. AIW in a course. We might find a situation where, like in the previous screen, the size of the unit is really just trying to show AIW relevance. So the very first unit that's indicated by being small, that might not be a very good unit to bring something from because the teacher's just reviewing the rules of the class and the content. So if your turn came up to bring an artifact in this particular moment, it'd be much better to bring an artifact from the second unit, which is juicy and big and really lends itself to what AIW has to offer. So we can begin to look at how to transform our course by being intentional about what it is we're focusing on. Down the road, what we find is that departments that meet together like to talk about developing AIW skill sets so they don't have to keep reteaching different AIW strategies. In this example, the civics teachers in 9th grade have a very big summative assessment with student work that goes with it. And the department has decided that in the beginning of 11th grade, they're going to go ahead and do a substantive conversation that's going to build directly off of that and be a touchstone or reference point for kids to go back to and go, yeah, I remember studying that in civics, and then leverage it to a much more deep, a more robust level. What we notice is that 11th grade, it's at the beginning of the course and it's setting the stage. The expectation would be that the kids would already know how to have a substantive conversation in this particular department. So if you start with one department and you're able to do it in one case, then you can do it within other departments. In this example here, let's imagine we have an art department and a music department. They're combined because it's a small school, and 5th grade decides they're going to do an art show. And we're going to have them do a point of pride. A point of pride goes one step further than a bundle. It actually is a highly authentic experience that allows kids in that grade level to be artists, in this case, or be museum curators, to put together a show that has purpose and intentionality the way professionals in the field would do it. Now, again, in this situation, the 5th grade team is excited about doing that within art, and the music teacher at 8th grade says, hey, I would like us to have a concert on that same weekend, just adjacent, and our kids are going to be talking about how the pieces were chosen and why we've created the tone and the interpretation of those pieces, and we'd like to tie it to the theme of the art show. Now, you might have that departmental agreement, but we also know that in schools we can have teams, grade level teams that are highly functional. So in this example, the 8th grade team is very interested in their AIW work, very interested in being interdisciplinary. So the English language arts teacher says to the music teacher, we would love to write the biographies that go with your soloists. We would love to write the nonfiction text that goes inside the brochures. And then the media arts teacher says, well, we have to teach that software anyways. We'd like to go ahead and put together the program for you. And that way it all comes together in an authentic way. Now, some departments are ready right out of the gate to start doing this within a short period of time. But eventually, at the schools that I've worked at that are in years 5 or 6 or 7, we'll unfurl a large piece of butcher block paper and put it up, and then just let people sit in departments and ask the question, does anyone else have a point of pride that they're working on that we could put up on this map and begin to build an infrastructure of authentic learning for all of our kids? In this example, when I did it, the 6th grade team were collecting water samples in their science unit for the DNR, and they were putting them in, and they were wanting to get a sustainable panel to talk about the impact of fertilizer and nitrates. So they wanted to put that up there. And then the math department says, hey, well, we would love to make the graphs that you'll need to do those presentations, because graphing is something that we're working on anyway. And then in that same school in 7th grade, the health teacher decided that she wanted to partner with the PE teacher to create fitness plans that would help kids understand how to create fitness stations. And the plans themselves would be examined in health class, and then again in math. They wanted to support by charting progress over time as kids gave their health plans to, and the fitness regimes to, the members of their family and their classmates to work on. In this map, a couple of things happen. First of all, you get larger points of pride where the department is taking the lead and supporting departments that are helping to show how their field is applied in supporting other disciplines. But also the administrative team is able to really map out what a family is experiencing. So if a family in this school had a 5th grader and a 7th grader and an 8th grader, you would want to make sure that all of this is not happening in exactly the same week, but rather scaffolded over time. And lastly, the most important part of eventually getting to points of pride is that every child in every grade would have an authentic experience in every discipline before they left the K-12 system and went on to either work or go on to college, giving them a much broader perspective of what all these disciplines have to offer professionally. So how does this look over time? We basically can talk about the 4 guiding principles, and each year they manifest themselves slightly differently. Typically in year 1, tasks build the power of the collective. Student work tends to be scored by people who feel strongly that tasks aren't giving them what they need. A PE teacher, a music teacher, people who feel like their student work is really going to tell them more. And some folks are already going into being authentic by looking at both the student work and the task already in year 1, seeing that connection. And then our trailblazers are really capitalizing on the power of risk-taking, and they are bringing instruction right away. Now imagine you're in year 2. So you have new teachers that have come on in year 1 who were not part of the pilot team, and they are again having what we've just described. But you have all of your original pilot teachers getting the power of the collective out of scoring student work. And now our trailblazers, all the way down to the red power of risk-taking, are moving towards bundling. It's exciting to show you this because there's a pattern. By year 3, the people who started out are now starting to see how student work and tasks tie together, and the trailblazers are moving into unit planning. By year 4, instruction should really be formulating the power of the collective, and bundling becomes something that's very organic. The unit planning piece is now moved from just being something that's a risk-taking situation into the power of being authentic. And people are starting to now wanting overhauling their courses in terms of AIW course. There's bundling in year 5 all the way up to departmental alignment, and then you can see in year 6 now unit planning. But again, you might have teachers that are in the whole spectrum of experiences. So this is where I really want to leave you. Even though every teacher is not doing the same activity every year, there's a place for intentionality, which is our final slide that we'd like to share with you. Thank you very much.